It has been over 5 years since Star Wars Battlefront II was released. That is 5 years of updates, controversy, improvements, worsenings of this game. It has been a real roller coaster, and I just wanted to play a little bit of Star Wars Battlefront 2 today and really talk to you guys about all the things that have happened over this period of time. So I think something very interesting that has happened with Star Wars Battlefront 2 since it was released was basically the scrubbing of its history from, well, the history books. I think a large part of this has to do with the fact that now a lot of Star Wars fans are younger. It's been 5 years. A whole lot more people who are currently playing Star Wars Battlefront 2 are, well, pretty young. And so they weren't here for the initial release of Star Wars Battlefront 2, and so they don't remember how much of a disaster this game was when it first came out. Initially, this game was basically the forefront of the loot box controversy that EA really started up. It was done by many a company at the time, but EA really took it and ramped it up to $1 million in search of higher and higher profits. It was basically that you would have to play thousands of hours of this game to unlock things that would allow you to pay to win if you just paid for them. It was an absolute disaster, a shameless money grab by EA, and something that really never should have happened. And something that I have noticed ever since then is that every year people forget about it and forget about it and forget about it. And that's mainly because Star Wars Battlefront 2 was honestly redeemed quite a bit over the years. Star Wars Battlefront 2 went from being an absolutely god-awful game that was marred with controversy and just problems to being an amazing title that people now love. So nowadays, when, I'm live streaming some Star Wars Battlefront 2, and I mention like, oh my god, do you guys remember when this game was just an absolute sheesh show? And I get a bunch of kids going, what do you mean? Star Wars Battlefront 2 is the GOAT, best game of all time, never had any problems. And you realize, wow, this game has truly been out for 5 years. Absolutely incredible that new generations are playing this game now. And it is what it is. It is a redeemed game that to a lot of people never had any problems because they weren't around when those problems were problems. I mean, this game had no player base for a very, very long time because honestly, the game was pretty shallow, didn't have a lot going on, and a lot of people just morally didn't want to support this game, and rightfully so. But nowadays, people love this game, and you still get a ton of people playing it on a regular basis. There has been sort of multiple lives of Star Wars Battlefront 2, to be honest. There was the initial disaster of its release, which resulted in it almost dying upon release. And then you had the rebirth. Star Wars Battlefront 2 became a huge hit as they just hunkered down, released updates, removed scummy tactics, and just let the developers have fun with the game. We got amazing updates. My favorite probably being the Geonosis update because we got so much out of that. And it seemed like the developers really cared at that point about the game and about their fan base. And I think that allowed this game to thrive for a while. However, once that last update came out, oh, this game died yet again. Oh, this game went downhill fast. It basically lost its entire player base. No one was playing Star Wars Battlefront 2. You could rarely actually find a game in Star Wars Battlefront 2. And that was sort of the second death of Star Wars Battlefront 2. This time, it was not due to the fact that the developers were being extraordinarily scummy. Not even the developers, just the publishers. But it had a second death, and it was kind of sad because you couldn't get into a game for the life of you. If you weren't playing on the weekend, you were not playing this game. If you were playing during a weekday, you were going to have a very difficult time actually finding a game of Star Wars Battlefront 2 to play. But then, honestly, the developers made the extremely generous and intelligent choice to make this game completely free to play. They were giving this game away for free, which basically renewed this game for the third time. Absolutely incredible, because they had all of these players joining in who didn't want to play before because it was expensive, they couldn't afford it, etc., etc. But then there was a ton of people playing again. And that brought in the old players yet again too, because now their friends who didn't have the game before actually had the game. And it was fun to kill noobs. I did an entire stream of literally just killing noobs in Star Wars Battlefront 2 when the game was free to play, because it was so easy and so unbelievably fun. It was ridiculous. And so this game had yet another rebirth period, which was honestly the best one yet. We had all of the best content already released in the game. We had all these new players in the game. That was really the truly best time of this game. And now it's just living its heyday. 5 years later, and this game is, quite honestly, still going very, very strong now. It's had its rebirths. Yeah, sure, it's died a few times, but again, it's always had its rebirths. And now, the game is just cruising on easy mode. It's still got a really, really solid player base. And I think that player base is both old heads and new, who, got the game for free and are trying it out, as well as the players who have just been tuning into this game for the longest time. And now we don't have that problem where it's really hard to find a lobby. Nowadays, you can sort of find lobbies left and right. It's not too difficult to find a lobby anymore, which is really nice, because that has kept this game alive for the past 5 years. All the lobbies that are available, all the players that are currently playing, it's a really, really nice thing. And so, therefore, Star Wars Battlefront 2 is doing extremely well right now, 5 years later, which is not something most games can actually say. That's pretty rare. And it's not even a live service game. Imagine if they were still updating this game. Wow. It would have a lot of players. And that's why I honestly think Star Wars Battlefront 3 probably will end up being live service. I made a video a while back basically stating that I did not think Star Wars Battlefront 3 was necessary, and I didn't think that it needed to come out. And at that time, I fully believed that, and I still believe at that time, Star Wars Battlefront 3 did not need to exist. We were getting all of these Star Wars fans butthurt that there wasn't a new Star Wars Battlefront when they hadn't even been playing the one that had just come out at that point. That was when the game was truly dead. And all of these updates had been released not even a year earlier. Fantastic updates that added all this new content, not to mention the modding community was going absolutely nuts in Star Wars Battlefront 3. There was so much content to be had. But still, people were complaining, and that's why I honestly think at that time, the Star Wars Battlefront community, the ones that were still there weren't complaining, but the Star Wars fans were just complaining to complain that they weren't getting this new content that really wasn't necessary. At the point in time, there wasn't that much new technology, there weren't that many new ideas, there were already all of these new features in the game that people weren't playing. And so therefore, I don't think the community deserved a new Star Wars Battlefront at that time when they wouldn't even play the old one. But now, honestly, I think that time has passed, and I think now the community does deserve a new one. People actually went back and played the game, played the new updates, and realized it was really fun. And now there's a really solid community here, and I think now is the perfect time to announce a Star Wars Battlefront 3. Announcing a Star Wars Battlefront 3 will get a whole bunch of new players into Star Wars Battlefront 2 who haven't played in a while. It'll basically make the game pop off yet again with anticipation for the next one. And on top of that, I think there's a lot of room for the next one right now. Graphics have gone up considerably. Not that Star Wars Battlefront 2 has dated graphics in the slightest. I mean, this game is still looking I completely misspelled BEA beautiful. I've had too much coffee today, guys. But yeah, this game looks gorgeous. I mean, you can't get past it. This is a gorgeous looking game still. But if you go ahead and look at newer games that have just come out, I mean, the graphics have surpassed Star Wars Battlefront 2. Star Wars Battlefront 3 could look absolutely amazing. We could have a near photorealistic Star Wars game, something we have never really had before. The closest we have ever come is this, or maybe the new Jedi games. That's pretty much it. So I think right now, technologically, we are in a place where there could be massive improvements. And on top of that, I think there's also massive improvements that could be made to game modes. I think right now technology has us at a point where new game modes are possible. You know, that dream of being able to go down from a Venator straight into the battlefield, or from the battlefield back into a Venator, that's there, you know? Star Wars Battlefront 3 way back in the day wasn't able to pull it off because it never got the chance to release, but now I think it could be pulled off with amazing graphics and on a modern game console. I think the technology is there to make that dream happen, and I think it's ready. So, you know, Star Wars Battlefront 3, man, I think it's possible, man. I think it's possible. I mean, modders are already doing those things in games like Squad. An indie game is pulling this off with the Galactic Contention mod. Bro, Star Wars Battlefront 3, if there's any time to announce it, I think it's right now. I think we're getting a ton of new Star Wars content as well. You can have Mandalorian characters as well as situations, scenarios, battlefields in there. You can have Andor characters and battlefields in there as well. There's so much new content out there that new maps can be created. Another major problem with Star Wars Battlefront 2 over the last 5 years was that at this point, most of the major planets that people want to fight on are in the game. There's a few outliers in there, of course. Uh-oh. Did we lag out? Oh no. Boys, the game ended up crashing for us there. It wasn't just an internet issue. The game quickly crashed after that as well. So 5 years later, we still have some issues. Or it could be my hardware, I'm not entirely sure what's going on with that. But either way, as I was sort of saying, there's a lot of maps that people, I think, really would still love to see in this game or done in a future Star Wars Battlefront 3. As I was saying, I think Mustafar would definitely be one of those, just like in classic Star Wars Battlefront 2 or Megiddo. I think a lot of actually prequel maps would be pretty sick. I think the prequel planets just in general are far more interesting than a ton of the sequel stuff. So I think that's something that they could expand on Star Wars Battlefront 3. I do think that in total, most of the important planets are in Star Wars Battlefront 2 already, but there's plenty of room for more planets to be tapped into from the total Star Wars universe. Still a ton of fun content to be had. And not to mention, tons of other factions you can do. I mean, Stormtroopers are a little overdone, to be completely honest. Star Wars Battlefront 1 had Stormtroopers, Star Wars Battlefront 2 had Stormtroopers, Star Wars Battlefront EA had Stormtroopers, Star Wars Battlefront 2 had Stormtroopers. Of course, Star Wars Battlefront 3 should have Stormtroopers, but at the exact same time, we should definitely be having other factions in there. Get the New Republic in there. Get the Sith Troopers in there. Have some fun new factions that players can play as, even if they're just reskins. Like, who cares? Just toss them right on in there and people will be more than happy to play as them. I think it would add a whole other section of the fan base, especially if they're using, you know, a lot of old Republic stuff for new games. Like, they're making a new KOTOR, they're remaking KOTOR. Just go ahead and toss Knights of the Old Republic factions in there already. I think it would have enough of a fan base to actually work for Star Wars Battlefront 3. And now I'm not saying that Star Wars Battlefront 2 is dead. Like I've been saying this whole video, it's had rebirths, and right now it is in a stage where there is still a constant fan base on here playing this game, having fun with this game. But I think we are at a point in time where the fans, they deserve some new content out there. They deserve new things to play. They deserve a new game at this point. And Star Wars Battlefront 3 should be that new game. So, I mean, thus far, Star Wars Battlefront 2 is honestly in such a nice state right now. There's great players in there. I rarely see hackers. Every once in a while, there definitely are hackers in this game. But it's not like Star Wars Battlefront 1 EA, where it's all hackers. If you have gone into that game anytime recently, it's almost all hackers. Now, I don't necessarily include console players in that because it's way easier to hack on PC, and I haven't played on console, so I don't know about console players. But at the very least, in PC, the hackers are absurd for Star Wars Battlefront EA, and it is annoying. You can't do friggin' anything without getting blasted by like a thrown proximity mine. That's one of the most annoying hacks that I visit and see all the time on that game. So really, Star Wars Battlefront EA, which is 7 years old now, as opposed to 5 years old, not that big of a difference in the grand scheme of things, is way worse off than Star Wars Battlefront 2 EA. At least there's rarely hackers in here. There's a full fan base. You can get into games. The same cannot be said for Star Wars Battlefront EA. This game, right now, 5 years on, is in a great place. We're not using mods right now, but the modding community is still very active on here. They're coming out with fun, goofy mods, as well as, you know, mods that actually are usable more than once. You know, the fun, goofy ones are like, oh, cool, I can play as Elmo, Darth Vader, but then it's like, okay, once you play with that once, who cares after that? But no, they've also got great mods like Clone Wars revamps. Mods that add basically all new casts of characters for the hero units. There's a lot of great stuff going on in Star Wars Battlefront 2 with the modding community, so even if you are bored of the base game, some of the mods turn this game into something completely different. So right now, Star Wars Battlefront 2, still extremely playable, even in its base game. But you add mods in there, it's all the more fun. And I'm really hoping we get Star Wars Battlefront 3 now. Either way, guys, this is Star Wars Battlefront 2, 5 years out. It's an interesting experience these past 5 years, but it's still going strong. I think we'll see you guys next year for Star Wars Battlefront in 6 years. Peace!
I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Be sure to click that subscribe button for more content, and hit the notification bell if you'd like to be alerted to whenever I live stream or upload. Thanks so much.